Today we're going to talk about Social Security. Now I'm gonna remind you right up front. These are just my numbers and these are just my ideas. I wouldn't I'm not a financial planner. I'm just sharing like how I'm doing things. Like I said, it's almost like crowdsourcing my retirement to a certain extent. So I'm going to go through these numbers real quick and we'll talk about a couple things just as an overall thing. I'm going to show you the break even points. Then we're going to talk about, in theory, what would happen if I took it early and put that money into the stock market. What would the impact be of that? Okay, so first, let's look at best number. So best break even, and you'll see if I explain these columns right here, just the age, best age, the monthly amount. So you'll see that in white is the monthly amount that you would get. So she would get, if she takes it 62, it's going to be 1683. If she takes it 67, it's going to be 2650. If she takes it 70, it'll be 3426. And then I just accumulate it. So if you look at some of the break-even points here, let's take a look. So when does the accum of 67 become more than the accum of 62? So it looks like it's about age 77 where the 67 accum is greater than the 62 accum. Then we've got, and so her break-even point 77, and then her other break-even point for waiting to 70 is 2046. Okay, so that's pretty standard. We're going to do hers early anyway. I get a little worried about means testing and stuff like that. So the current plan is that she takes it at 62 to kind of just endure the shock a little. Honestly, mentally, I don't feel like taking as much from my investments and stuff. I'd rather take her Social Security early. We'll do mine later since mine's the bigger amount. But I worry about means testing and things like that. So I'm toying around taking mine early too. But anyhow, so that's take care of Beth. Let's look at mine. This is where we get into an interesting question because I was going to do mine at 67, and then I started thinking about this other stuff. So let's take a look. So I did discover something interesting. So in Social Security, there's a built-in like COLA, right? I don't know how it works. I know it's a little unfair. It takes like the COLA of last year or something like that. So when I was doing my break-even points, they just looked a little high. Then what I realized, which we're going to plug back into this thing, is that when you go out to websites and ask for break-even points, they assume a zero COLA, just a straight number. But I was putting in Social Security a COLA, so that COLA, because you were getting it early, you were getting some of that percentage early, was impacting my break-even. So I'll show you that real quick. So the Social Security rate, if it's zero, no COLAs, then if we look at the accums, starting at 67, I would get 2738. Or at 62, I'm sorry, 62 is 2738, 67 is 3888, 70 is 4821. Okay, so, and it's pretty commonly accepted if you just wait, the common knowledge, which is good knowledge, is you just kind of have to gear, like how long do you think you're going to live? If you think you're going to live beyond your break-even point, then, then wait. If you want to take it early because you think you're going to die before then take it early. Or heck, if you're just hosed and you just don't have enough money and you just can't make it, you may have to just take it early. Everyone has to make their own decision. This video is all about like what are some of the things that go into my process of thinking. So you'll see my break-even point where the 67 accumulator is more than the 62 accumulator is right here. So with 0% Social Security rate, with no COLAs. So that is 78, which didn't surprise me. I figured 77, 78, something like that. So now let's do this. This is what was interesting though, and I don't know if it'll play into it that much, but let's just say Social Security has an average of maybe, 2.5%. COLA. So all of a sudden, if I have a 2.5% COLA, then now realize too in Social Security, these two numbers will actually be bigger than this because I think when they give you these estimates, they don't include COLAs between now and when you turn 62, or between now and when you turn 60, 67. So maybe what's pushing my break even point is the accumulation of the COLAs that would have also happened between 62 and 67. But it's okay. I mean, it doesn't, it's, I know a year or two isn't going to change my entire perspective. So, but just for curiosity, let's see where my break even point is now. So it looks like my break even point now, if I apply the same COLA to both, is 82. But like I said, that's probably not true because this 3888 would be adjusted by the 2.5% every year here. So if I added like 10% to this, it would probably balance things out. But that's not the interesting question. So that's pretty common knowledge, right? The longer you wait, the more money you're going to get. I think it's like 8% or something, like maybe 6% if you wait. Because they want you to wait, which makes sense, right? Because the more people that, well, I don't know. Maybe let's just take the best approach. They want to be fair. So that was going to be essentially, give or take some more details. That was going to be the video, and that was going to be what I was researching. The only thing to consider, and I'm going to consider this when we talk about stock market, is the value of your life. And this is what you're going to hear. And it's not an easy thing to think about, right? So, what's the value of my life between 62 and 77, or between 62 and the break even, which in this case, what did I say the break even was? It was 82 or something like that. Yeah. So, you start asking yourself, what's the value of your life? You got the value of money, and then you got the value of your life. So, quite frankly, I don't think anyone would disagree. I mean, maybe some would, that your 62 to 77 years, which in my plan are the go-go years, are probably more valued than like the 78 to 90 years. Because the likelihood of you being able to go, the likelihood of you being active is just thinner, right? It's like smaller that you're going to have an active life at 80, that let's put it out there. What do you think you're going to be more active at? 62 or like the beginning of each of these cycles, right? Are you going to be more active at 62 or 78? I bet you cash you take 62. So to a certain extent, even though the value of your money, you're making less, you're living a fuller life. Now, obviously, if you're just going to run out of money and starve to death, then you definitely want to wait. And the converse of that is true as well. If at 67, you're going to be starving and you're not working anymore, even like say 62, you lost your job, you can't get another one, then maybe you just have to take 62, because dying at 77 versus, collecting more money is just a moot point. Okay. So think about that. Have that in the back of your head. Your earlier years are probably more valuable to you than the money. So that got me thinking about Dave Ramsey, because Dave Ramsey, and I kind of always thought about this, but I was too lazy to figure it out. So I figured this is a good time to do it in this video, and for me too, which is all of these things. So I said, what if, because 62 to 77 is very valuable years for me, what if I collected at 62, but what would the impact be if I collected at 62, but I put all that money in the stock market until 77? Like, what would just the financial impact be? So let's start with that question. So now, and I know stock market is volatile, but let's just say, is the stock market, and I know there are bad years where it goes 10 years before you get your money back. That's all a personal decision that we all have to make. But in the back of my mind too is, and this is just putting out there, is there going to come a point where they're going to say, you have $1 million in your 401k, so you shouldn't be entitled to Social Security. So this little part of me in the back of my head is like, are they going to means test? And what are they going to do with that? And maybe it would be better to get my money sooner. I don't know. Let's just work it out. Everybody has to make their own decision. So what I did is I added a column called Stick in the Stock Market. Now, obviously, what I'm sticking in the stock market is this amount, because I'm collecting at 62. So from 62 to 66, well, let's highlight this. I'm literally, as I collect that money, Bang, I'm sticking it right in the stock market. Now, my calculations, I'm using 5% for the stock market, 2.5% return, or a 2.5% COLA for Social Security. And I would just stick it probably in the S&P 500 because this is extra money. So that's what I did. I modeled this. I said, okay, what would happen? So you can see this becomes 32,000, and then this plus this, right? Plus the year's return from the prior market, from the prior year. So that's what you see. You see, hey, take what I had last year, okay, add it to what I had this year. And I know you do it per month, whatever. We're just looking to get some ideas. Take last year, what was in the stock market, what I had when I'm going into New Year, plus the new year, and then add it and then multiply it times the return, which in my case is 5%. Now that's not completely accurate. If I wanted to make this like accurate down to the dollar, I couldn't do it that way. I have to say I'm not putting that full amount in January. I'm putting it in every 2 weeks. But still, let's just play around with this. If I can go further with this, I may go further, which I probably will. But this is just fun. Okay, so that's what you see here. For this many years, I'm basically taking my entire Social Security, shoving it in the S&P, and getting an average of 5% back. And that's what this column. Now, the second I turn 67, what do I have to do? I have to start taking out the difference. So if my monthly is $3,098, but I would have gotten 3,888, maybe even a little more. I have to take out the difference. So what's the difference? So that difference is the difference between my accumulated value. Well, here, let's just do this. The difference is between my yearly, what I would have collected in 1 year at 62, and what I would have collected at 1 year at 67. So that theoretically, I have to take that difference out of this what's in the market, because I'm going to need to pull from that account to make up the difference. And that you could get screwed on that a little, right? You could have potentially sequence of return risk right there, because let's just say that first year I want to retire, or the first year I hit 67, the market takes a dive and this money that I just put in goes down. That is certainly an issue. I could argue that, well, I could just take that from one of my other funds instead of taking it from here. But I'm all about simple, and that will probably cause it to not be simple anymore. So that's a risk. You got to decide on the appetite for two things, right? Your appetite for risk and your appetite for complexity. I like simple stuff, but if we started doing this becomes more complex than my simple barbell strategy, which says, hey, if my unsafe or my riskier portfolio is going down, then take from my safe portfolio, and vice versa, and then just rebalance them. So let's just look. So that's what this what's in the market. What's in the market, I have to subtract out, and that's what you see here. P11 minus S12. I have to subtract out the delta, because right in the beginning of the year, I'm going to take out the difference that I need for that year. Okay, so you start to see it's really, and I just keep doing that all the way through. Like I said, this assumes, what's the word I'm looking for? Assumes a constant rate of return. But let's just say for average, because I can't predict what years are going to be what. I'm certainly not going to run a Monte Carlo on this whole thing. So you'll see that it worked. My new break even gets a little different now, because if I add, well, what's interesting is, because the difference is getting bigger. That's what's happening. As the difference gets bigger, this number starts getting smaller, because now my difference, let's see, my difference is getting bigger every year that I have to take out 15, take out 13, take out 12. So my principal here is starting to be reduced. But you could argue this makes it even, right? So this is my new break even, right? Because my new break even says, listen, as long as that account has enough to take out the delta between the two, then it's still good. There's money in there. So now what's interesting about this, my new break even is 94. It's pretty awesome, right? But I probably don't have an appetite for risk for that. But that's not, maybe the appetite for risk isn't what I'm thinking of. So what I'm thinking of, and this gets back to the conversation we had a few minutes ago about what years do I want to have the most money available to me, right? I want to have the most money available to me during those go-go years, 62 to 77. So then I added a column. I said, well, what if in addition to just, hey, it's sitting in the market and I have to take out the delta, between what I would collect at 67 and what I am collecting at 62. I said, what if the whole point of this exercise, yeah, I have a better break even, but I don't know, maybe that's not what I want to be all about. So what if it's all about, wow, I have all this cash sitting here now. What if I could use that, because now I control it, not the United States government, to start doing some fun things. So I created this column, withdrawal for fun. So then I said, well, what's the impact? And remember, our break even is when this goes to negative. So if at 95 this number is negative, meaning it means I run out of money in here. So that means it's, I've my break even was the prior year. You could argue my break even's 95, but whatever. So what if I started saying, you know what, I want to go on extra special vacation at 68? What does that do? Okay. So that brings my break even now down to like 93. But hey, I'm okay with that. And we do another 5,000 here. Okay, now my break even is 92. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Break even comes down to 91. So I'm like, I'm probably, like, my current model says I'm going to die by 91. I mean, I'll still be okay because I'll be living on Social Security and stuff. But again, my Social Security will be lower. Now my break even is still 91. Now my break even goes down to 90, but you see the thinking. And I don't know if I'm going to do this or not, because it adds complexity. I'm not real thrilled with complexity. I think a stock market return for 5% is pretty conservative. I don't know, because for Pete's sakes, if it was 5%, I could probably even put it in treasuries or something like that. Put it in like a 10-year treasury and just say, hey, I'm not going to be able to spend that first money till 72. I don't know. I could do something like that. Let's see, what would happen if, and this is where you can play on it. What if I did 4% instead of 5%? So now my break even is 87. So, but what's the break even? The break even is 87. My old break even was 85. My new break even with stock market, assuming 4% rate of return, is 86. But I spent an extra $25,000 on vacations. So Dave Ramsey says this is a no-brainer. Now, I understand why Dave Ramsey says things, because he says most people aren't disciplined. That's why he says no credit cards or anything like that. I use credit cards, and I've booked probably 5 different vacations, and the flights have been paid for because of the credit card. Accumulating points, and I never carry a balance. So, but I understand Dave Ramsey has a big audience, and so he has to be careful he doesn't give advice, because if people aren't disciplined enough to do it. So the real question for this strategy, and you'd have to do your own numbers too, this is just giving you some ideas, is what do you do? Do you say, hey, I love this 5,000 extra that I'm getting those years when I want to go on maybe a real special vacation, but then I incur a degree of risk? Granted, it's a pretty low risk, and maybe I put it in a 10-year CD or something like that. But if I put it in a 10-year CD, that means I wouldn't be able to take vacations till 73. Oh no, I couldn't put it all in a CD anyhow, because it comes up once a year. I'd have to put it, or it comes up every month. That wouldn't work either. So basically, you kind of have to incur the risk. You have to decide, one, how on top of my plan am I, which I'm teaching you right capital. I'm teaching you how you can monitor your plan, how you can watch your plan. The only thing, there's a couple things I don't like this. The one thing I don't like is you make this decision at 62, there's probably no going back. It's not like at 73 you can say, oh, I changed my mind. Let me give back all $500,000 and we can start from there, because you're not going to have it. there's no going back. That, I guess that's the real issue with this thing, right? Is the potential cost of the decision. One is it's risk versus return, right? It's like, hey, I get to spend an extra 25, 30 grand maybe on vacations in my go-go years, which is awesome because they're my go-go years. But I introduce stock market flexibility into my social security plan. And so if the stock market tanks for 7, 8 years, I could be totally screwed. On the other hand, who knows? Maybe there'll be means testing and they'll start, means testing people, which is another whole thought together. The reason that little part of me doesn't just say take, take both of our social securities at 70, which I guess would be the optimal way, is because I would have to draw down all my 401ks, and or is that my investments would have to pay for this stuff. And so what happens if we hit 70 and the government just isn't capable of paying it out at the full rate? Now I've basically burned my excuse me, burned my investments, assuming that United States government was going to be 100% crystal clear in 35, 40 years, which I think it's a pretty good bet. So, I mean, you have to make your own decision. The factors to consider are 62 to 77 are your go-go years. This $25,000 you get between 62 and 77 probably going to be a lot more valuable than the extra payment you get when you're in between 78 and 91. Like I said, I have friends and their parents just sit at home. They have tons of money in the bank and they don't do anything. And they look back and go, gosh, I wish I would have spent more money. This is a tool where you're still going to get theoretically an annuity, but you got to be really disciplined about it. So again, I'm not giving financial advice. My whole goal of my channel is to get you guys tools and get you thinking on different things of retirement and how I manage my retirement, how I manage my early retirement, how I use right capital, how I like when I hear these ideas from the web, this is what I put in. I put this in a spreadsheet just to see how it would pan out. I'll probably do more than this. If I decide to take this strategy, I'll probably break it down even more to get it closer. Maybe the monthly thing. I don't know. Probably not. But I would do more. But it's interesting. It's totally feasible. It's probably worth looking into for me. Because I tend to look at that 62 to 77, and that's where the fun is at, people. That's when you're going to be having the good times. So again, thanks for listening to my channel. Do what you can to retire early. Enjoy your life. Take care.